Have you ever woken up and realized that you no longer recognize the person in the mirror, not because you've changed, but because you haven't? You see the same tired eyes, the same excuses, the same story repeating itself. You're not living. You're enduring. Surviving in a life you didn't choose, but settled for. And deep down, you know, something has to change. Not tomorrow. Not next year. Now. What if I told you that in just 7 days, you could begin to become unrecognizable, not to others, but to the weaker version of yourself that you're finally ready to bury? This isn't about achieving perfection. It's about rupture. About tearing through the skin of old habits and exposing something real, something stronger. Because real change never begins from comfort. It begins from rebellion. So here's the truth no one tells you: the life you want isn't waiting. It's hiding. Beneath your addictions. Beneath your laziness. Beneath your fear of being uncomfortable. And if you can face that discomfort for just 1 week, really face it, you'll unlock a version of yourself that doesn't just dream of freedom. He demands it. Day 1 begins not with action, but with silence. You sit down, no phone, no distractions, and you look yourself dead in the eyes. You write, not what you want to do, but what you refuse to keep doing. Every lie, every excuse, every moment you betrayed your potential. You write it down and you burn it. And when the ashes settle, you decide, that man is dead. He doesn't get another day. You don't start by becoming a better version of yourself. You start by killing the weak one. From the moment you wake up on day 2, you declare war. On comfort. On indecision. On that seductive little voice that says, it's okay to take it easy today. No. It's not okay. It's not okay to settle. Not when you've seen what your life could become. So you strip everything down to the core: cold showers, clean food, hard discipline, early mornings. Not because these things are magic, but because they are resistance. You're not building a new life. You're building a new mind, one that doesn't flinch when life punches first. You journal every day. Not about what went right, but about where you were weak. And what you'll do to fix it. There's no reward for survival here. Only growth. Pain becomes your tutor. Discomfort your ritual. And discipline, your only form of love. By day 3, your body starts to resist. It craves the easy life. But this is the turning point. This is where most people quit, not because it's too hard, but because they think it shouldn't be this hard. But you know better. You've read Marcus Aurelius. You've heard Seneca whisper, if you want to be invincible, stop trying to avoid pain. You're not here to escape the storm. You're here to become it. You train, even when you're exhausted. You read, even when your mind screams for dopamine. You speak less. You listen more. You stop reacting and start observing yourself, your triggers, your patterns. Because a man who cannot master himself will never master his fate. By day 4, the outer world starts to notice. But their opinion means nothing. What matters is this: you no longer walk like prey. Your eyes don't dart around the room. You speak slower. You walk straighter. You breathe deeper. You've tasted control, and it's addictive. But here's the part no one prepares you for: the loneliness. When you start becoming unrecognizable, the world grows silent. People stop understanding you. And that's good. Because the man you're becoming does not need to be understood. He needs to be feared, by his weaknesses, by his past, by the version of himself that begged for comfort and died in the fire of discipline. So don't expect applause. Expect resistance, from within and without. But every day, as you shed the skin of who you were, something primal awakens. Something that cannot be bought, cannot be faked, cannot be inherited. Only earned. Through sweat. Through solitude. Through the brutal honesty of facing yourself without turning away. You are not changing your life in a week. You are burning the script. And writing a new one in blood. Day 5 doesn't feel like a victory. It feels like withdrawal. Your body is screaming. Your mind is bargaining. The voice inside returns, this time softer, more seductive: you've done enough. 1 day off won't ruin the progress. But you've seen this voice before. It wears 100 disguises, but always has one goal: to pull you back into the fog. You shut it down without mercy. Because you understand something now: change is not a moment. It's not one grand gesture. It's not a motivational quote or a spark of inspiration. It's a process of death and rebirth, repeated every single day. You kill the coward in the morning. You bury his excuses in sweat. And at night, you mourn nothing, because he deserved to die. You're not waiting for motivation anymore. You're using discipline as your sword. And every time you act against your own weakness, you sharpen it. On this day, you start eliminating. Not just junk food or laziness, but something deeper. You look at your surroundings, your space, your digital world, and you begin cutting. You remove distractions like a surgeon with a blade. You uninstall apps. You stop scrolling. You throw out anything that doesn't serve your mission. You don't ask, do I like this? You ask, does this make me stronger? If the answer is no, it's gone. Because when you're serious about transformation, you become ruthless. You stop hoarding comfort. You stop trying to protect the old version of you. He doesn't need preservation. He needs extinction. You cut off toxic people, not with drama, not with theatrics, but with silence. You realize you don't owe your energy to those who drain it. You don't owe explanation to those who only knew your past. You are under no obligation to remain the person they once recognized. Because the truth is, they're not mourning you. They're mourning their control over you. Let them. Day 5 teaches you that freedom doesn't come from addition. It comes from subtraction. Simplicity is power. Silence is clarity. And space is sacred. You create space for the new version of you to emerge. Not the one they expect. The one you've never met before. You move differently now. You speak with intention. You listen to your thoughts like a guard listening for footsteps in the dark. You watch them rise, the anger, the fear, the craving, but you don't obey. You observe. And in that space between urge and action, you find power. By now, your rituals are becoming instinct. Wake up early. Train hard. Eat clean. Write with brutal honesty. Breathe deeply. Study the minds of the ancient warriors who walked this path before you. Meditate like your life depends on it, because it does. You no longer look for hacks. You've become the hack. But as the days pass, a strange realization hits you. You've started to enjoy the pain. Not because it feels good, but because it proves you're not dead inside. You've walked through discomfort so many times, it's begun to feel like home. You meet suffering like an old rival. Not with fear. With familiarity. And when you look in the mirror now, something's different. The man you see isn't smiling. He's not glowing. He's not radiating fake joy or forced gratitude. He's calm. Quiet. Ready. Not for battle, for mastery. By day 6, there's no going back. You've burned the bridge behind you, and you're not swimming for shore. You're swimming deeper, into the unknown. Into the version of yourself that scares you most, because he doesn't make excuses. He doesn't beg for comfort. He doesn't care what the world thinks. He only cares about one thing, becoming the man he was born to be. You realize now, the hardest part was never the pain. It was giving up the identity that felt familiar. The lazy one. The one who blamed everything but himself. The one who called discipline, toxic, and indulgence, self-care. That man is gone. And in his place stands someone new, unfinished, perhaps, but undeniable. And you start to see the irony. In order to change your life in 1 week, you don't need to become a new person. You need to remember who you were before the world taught you to be small. Before society told you to numb yourself with screens and sugar and praise. Before you forgot that your soul was meant for mountains, for silence, for stillness, and for war. So on this 6th day, you go for a long walk. Alone. No music. No phone. Just you and the wind. You look at the sky and feel something ancient rise in your chest. Not emotion. Not inspiration. Something older. Something stoic. You feel readiness. You've done what most people won't. You've sat with yourself. You've faced the mirror without blinking. You've made the decision not once, but every single hour, to be better. And now, there is only one thing left to do. Day 7. The day you don't just act different. The day you are different. But that's tomorrow. And when it comes, you won't need a plan. You'll need fire. Day 7. You wake before the alarm. There's no hesitation. No snooze button. You sit up, not because you have to, but because you can. Your body aches, but your mind is clear. And for the first time in years, you realize. You don't need motivation anymore. You've become the kind of man who does what needs to be done, without negotiation. You don't look for reasons. You don't wait for a spark. You are the spark. And that is the most dangerous thing you can be in this world, a man who moves without needing permission. You've completed a full cycle now, not just of habit, but of identity. 7 days ago, you were drowning in distraction, delay, self-pity. You hid your strength behind jokes. You escaped through noise. You performed for others, hoping they'd approve what you couldn't accept in yourself. That man would not survive today. You dress simply. You eat deliberately. You breathe like a warrior before battle, steady, calm, measured. You've stripped away the unnecessary. What's left is essential. Sharp. Focused. Alive. And now it's time to go outside. Not for fresh air. Not for peace. You go outside to face the world that once made you feel small, and to walk through it like you own every step. Because you've realized something vital. Confidence doesn't come from praise. It comes from proof. And over these past 7 days, you've earned it, not with words, but with action. You didn't talk about change. You became change. You didn't ask how to live better. You proved it with every hour you spent sweating, suffering, sharpening. You walk differently now. Not to impress. Not to intimidate. But because you no longer carry the invisible weight of shame. Of lies. Of weakness. You are lighter, because you've dropped the person you were pretending to be. People notice. Some are inspired. Some are threatened. Some don't understand you at all anymore. And that's okay. You weren't doing this for them. You were doing this for the man you see when no one's watching. For the man who doesn't need applause. Who doesn't perform. Who doesn't explain himself. You did this for him. But here's the real twist, this isn't the end. This is the beginning. Because once you've changed your life in 1 week, you realize something terrifying and beautiful. You can do it again. And again. And again. Not because life is a never-ending sprint. But because growth is infinite. Because mastery has no ceiling. Because the path doesn't end, it only deepens. You don't go back to normal. You don't reward yourself with the comforts you swore to leave behind. You've outgrown them. Like a snake shedding skin, you've left behind what no longer fits. Now, you want challenge. You crave resistance. You chase the edge, not for danger, but for refinement. You train not to impress, but to discipline your chaos. You read not to appear wise, but to sharpen your inner vision. You meditate not to escape life, but to feel it more clearly. This is not a phase. It's not a dopamine high. It's not the grind or the hustle culture cult. This is sacred. It's ancient. It's the life Marcus Aurelius wrote about when he said, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." And now, you are. Not perfect. But real. Unapologetically raw. Focused. Present. That is the reward. Not money. Not praise. Not followers. Presence. Power. Control over your time, your attention, your thoughts. You finally own yourself, after a lifetime of renting yourself out to every temptation that knocked on your door. So what happens now? You rebuild. Slowly. Intentionally. You make choices like a man who knows the weight of his own time. You don't chase everything. You choose what aligns. You say no, a lot. You cut ruthlessly. Because when you say yes to weakness, you say no to your potential. You track your time like it's gold, because it is. You speak like your words matter, because they do. You treat your body like a weapon, because it's your first and final tool. You guard your mind like a fortress, because every enemy gets in through the front gate. And when the world pulls at you, trying to distract, to provoke, to tempt, you don't fight it. You let it pass. Like wind over stone. Because you're no longer reactive. You're rooted. Stoic. And yes, there will be moments when the old you whispers again. When comfort calls. When the fire flickers. But now you know what to do. You don't negotiate. You don't plead. You don't panic. You remember. You remember day one, when you made a decision. You remember day 3, when your body tried to quit and your mind said, one more step. You remember day 5, when silence became your sword. You remember day 7, when you finally saw who you were meant to be. So you return to the breath, to the mirror, to the mission. And you begin again. Because becoming unrecognizable is not a goal. It's a way of life. Day 8. No, that's not a mistake. There is always a day 8. Because change does not stop when the challenge ends. The real transformation begins after the applause dies, when no one's watching, when the world expects you to revert, and you don't. Day 8 is the day the world tests you. You walk into the same job, the same room, the same city. But you are not the same. You no longer shrink to fit. You don't laugh at the jokes you used to fake. You don't seek comfort from people who numb themselves just to get through the day. You see it now. You see how blind you used to be. And it hurts, but not in a bad way. It's the pain of waking up. Of seeing clearly. Of realizing how much time you gave to a life you didn't love. But you don't regret it. Because without that pain, you wouldn't be here. You wouldn't have been desperate enough to begin. You wouldn't have clawed your way through your own weakness, one bloody inch at a time. You wouldn't have found the voice inside that finally said, enough. You know now, it's not about 1 week. It's about reclaiming your soul. And that process doesn't end. Ever. Every morning from here on out, you will face a question. Will you honor the man you've become, or betray him? That's the cost of transformation. Once you've seen what you're capable of, you can never unsee it. You can't pretend to be average again. You can't shrink into the crowd. You can't fake smiles to survive mediocrity. You've tasted something real now, and everything else feels like poison. So you stop performing. You start building. Brick by brick, in silence, without fanfare. You stop rushing. You become patient. You stop chasing validation. You become dangerous. You start choosing solitude over shallow company. You become selective with your words, your time, your energy. You're not rude, you're just no longer available for nonsense. You'd rather be alone in truth than surrounded by lies. You no longer need external fuel to keep going. Because you've built a generator inside your chest. It runs on conviction. On purpose. On the memory of the man you used to be, and the promise to never go back. You carry yourself like a soldier who survived a war. Because you have. 7 days ago, you were at war with yourself. And you won. Not because you defeated every weakness. But because you stood and fought when every part of you wanted to run. Because you bled and didn't quit. Because you rose each morning not to coast, but to conquer. Now, every hour is an opportunity. Every setback, a test. Every silence, a mirror. You realize you don't need to talk about what you're doing anymore. You are what you're doing. Your life is now the loudest thing in the room. So when people ask what happened, how you changed so fast, you don't explain. You let them feel it. In your presence. In your stillness. In the fire behind your eyes. You let them witness the power of a man who's been through his own hell and forged a weapon out of the pain. You've become unrecognizable. Not because your body changed. Not because your schedule changed. But because your spirit did. You no longer serve your fear. You serve your mission. And in a world full of noise, that kind of clarity is rare. It's dangerous. It's unstoppable. And now, it's yours. So what happens next? You build. You build a life that reflects your strength, not your fears. You choose friends that elevate, not entertain. You pursue mastery, not applause. You build systems that make discipline automatic. You build habits that make excellence inevitable. You build boundaries so tight that chaos dies on the doorstep. And you protect the peace you fought to find, not like a luxury, but like your last breath. Because that peace? That self-control? That power? It was earned. With every early morning. With every repetition. With every moment you stared down your demons and whispered, not today. You earned this life. And now you own it. So walk forward, not like someone who's changed. Walk like someone who's become. And if anyone dares ask how long it took, tell them the truth. It only took 7 days. But it took everything you had. And it was worth it.